There is something sitting in your refrigerator right now that most people would never think twice about. It is not a mystery food. It is not something expired or suspicious. It is last night's dinner, the meal you carefully cooked from scratch, the one made with real ingredients, the one you were actually proud of. You covered it up, put it in the fridge, and tomorrow you plan to pull it out, slide it into the microwave, and call it lunch. Completely reasonable, completely normal, and for certain foods, completely dangerous in ways that most people will never hear about until it is too late. Here's what nobody tells you. Certain foods do not just lose quality when you reheat them. They actually change at a chemical level. Compounds that did not exist in your original meal get created during the reheating process. Some of these compounds are classified carcinogens. Some are mutagens that directly damage your DNA. Some are inflammatory agents that silently set the stage for cancer to develop over time. And the worst part is that these foods are not the obvious culprits. They are the everyday staples. The things you rotate through every single week without a second thought. Now, before you assume this is about microwave radiation, making your food toxic, let me stop that idea right now. Microwaves do not make food radioactive. They do not leave radiation in your leftovers. That is not the issue at all. The real problem is how microwaves heat food, which is chaotically and unevenly. While the average temperature of your food might seem perfectly fine, individual hotspots inside the food can reach temperatures far beyond what any stovetop would ever produce. And it is inside those extreme hotspots where the most dangerous chemical reactions happen at their fastest rate. The microwave does not cause the problem. It amplifies it beyond what most people would ever expect. To understand why certain foods become genuinely harmful when reheated, you need to understand a few basic chemical reactions that take place inside your food the moment heat hits it again. The first is called the Maillard reaction. This is the same reaction that makes bread crusty, gives grilled meat its savory depth, and creates the caramel notes in roasted vegetables. It happens when amino acids and sugars interact under heat. During the first cooking, the Maillard reaction produces a range of compounds responsible for great flavor. But when you reheat food, the reaction picks up exactly where it left off and pushes further into later stages that produce far more harmful molecules, including heterocyclic amines and acrylamide, both classified as probable human carcinogens by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. The second reaction is lipid oxidation. When fats and oils are heated, they react with oxygen and begin breaking down into a cascade of degradation products. Some of these products, particularly a compound called 4-hydroxynonenal and another called malondialdehyde, are potent mutagens that can bind directly to your DNA and cause mutations. What makes this especially dangerous during reheating is that the products formed during the first cooking actually act as catalysts during the second heating, making the second round of oxidation happen exponentially faster and more extensively. The food looks the same, it smells mostly the same, but chemically it is a completely different substance than what you originally made. The third reaction is nitrosamine formation, which occurs specifically in foods containing nitrates or nitrites. When these nitrogen compounds are heated alongside amino acids, they can combine to form nitrosamines, which are among the most potent carcinogens ever identified in food science. And the fourth process is the destruction of protective compounds. Many foods naturally contain antioxidants, vitamins, and phytochemicals that protect your cells from damage. Reheating, especially in the microwave, destroys large amounts of these compounds. So you are not just adding more toxins to the food. You are simultaneously stripping away the very defenses your body would have used to fight those toxins. It is a double hit, and it is happening in 5 specific foods that most people reheat without a second thought. The first food is anything cooked in oil. Leftover stir fries, sauteed vegetables, fried rice, reheated roasted dishes, anything that was cooked in oil and then warmed up the next day falls into this category. During the first cooking, the oils begin to break down. Their fatty acid chains crack, and their double bonds react with oxygen in a process called autooxidation. This generates compounds called lipid hydroperoxides. During that first cooking, your body's natural antioxidant systems can manage the relatively small amount of these compounds that form. But when you refrigerate that food and then blast it with microwave heat the next day, something dramatically different happens. Those lipid hydroperoxides that formed during the first cooking are unstable. When reheated, they decompose into a wave of secondary oxidation products that are far more toxic than anything from the first round. The most alarming of these is 4-hydroxynonenal, a reactive molecule that binds directly to DNA, creating what scientists call DNA adducts, chemical scars on your genetic material. When cells attempt to replicate that scarred DNA, errors occur. Those errors can become mutations. And if those mutations land in genes that control cell growth, the path toward cancer has quietly begun. This compound has been specifically linked to pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer, and liver cancer in multiple studies. A study published in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine found that 4-hydroxynonenal concentrations in reheated cooking oils were up to 20 times higher than in freshly cooked oils. 20 times from a single reheating. People often assume olive oil is the safe option since it is widely considered a healthy fat, and it absolutely is when used fresh. But olive oil contains chlorophyll and other pigments that act as prooxidants at high temperatures, actually accelerating the formation of toxic compounds during reheating. Polyunsaturated oils like sunflower, corn, and soybean oil are even more vulnerable because their multiple double bonds give oxidation more places to attack simultaneously. If you need to reheat something cooked in oil, do it gently on the stovetop over low heat while stirring constantly. Adding a small splash of water helps moderate the temperature and dilutes the concentration of oxidation products. Better yet, cook only what you will eat in one sitting when oil-based cooking is involved. The second food is processed meat. Bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats, salami, pepperoni, any meat that has been smoked, cured, salted, or chemically preserved falls into this category. The World Health Organization has already classified processed meats as a Group 1 carcinogen, meaning the evidence that they cause cancer in humans is unambiguous. They belong in the same certainty category as tobacco smoke and asbestos. Reheating them does not just warm them up. It significantly increases the carcinogenic load you are about to consume, and it does so through multiple pathways happening simultaneously. The primary preservatives in processed meats are sodium nitrite and sodium nitrate. During the first cooking, some of these nitrites react with amino acids in the meat to begin forming nitrosamines. When you reheat that meat, especially in the microwave where hotspots create extreme localized temperatures, this reaction accelerates dramatically. The initial cooking already primed the reactive intermediates. The second heating provides the energy to push the reaction to completion. Two of the most dangerous nitrosamines formed this way are N-nitrosodimethylamine and N-nitrosodiethylamine, both classified as probable human carcinogens and both linked in epidemiological studies to increased rates of stomach cancer, esophageal cancer, and pancreatic cancer. Beyond nitrosamines, the smoking and curing process introduces polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons into the meat, which can undergo further transformation during reheating into even more mutagenic derivative compounds. The recommendation here is simple. If you eat processed meats at all, eat them freshly prepared. And if you have leftovers, eat them cold. Cold consumption does not generate additional nitrosamines, does not transform polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and does not accelerate lipid oxidation in the fat. The third food is rice, and this one genuinely surprises people. Rice seems like the most harmless food on earth. It has no fat to oxidize, no nitrites to form carcinogens. How could rice possibly be dangerous when reheated? The answer involves a bacterium, a heat-resistant toxin, and a chemical transformation that most people have never heard of. Rice, once cooked, becomes an ideal breeding ground for a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. This bacterium forms heat-resistant spores that survive the original cooking process. When rice cools and sits out even briefly before refrigeration, those spores germinate and bacteria begin multiplying. The emetic toxin they produce, called cereulide, can withstand temperatures of 126 degrees Celsius for 90 full minutes without being destroyed. Microwave reheating does not come close to eliminating it. You could reheat your rice until it was steaming and the toxin would still be completely active. But the more directly cancer-relevant concern with reheated rice involves its starch chemistry. When rice is cooked, its starch granules absorb water and swell. When cooled, some of that starch undergoes a process called retrogradation, realigning into a more crystalline structure. When this retrograded starch is then reheated in a microwave at high power, a portion of those starch molecules react with amino acids present in the rice through the Maillard reaction to produce acrylamide. This compound is classified as a probable human carcinogen and is metabolized in the body into a molecule called glycitamide, which directly binds to DNA and causes mutations. The acrylamide content of reheated rice increases with higher microwave power, longer reheating time, and drier rice, because lower water content concentrates the reactants and raises the effective temperature. To protect yourself, cool rice quickly after cooking by spreading it on a flat surface, refrigerate it within 1 hour, and reheat it on the stove top with a splash of water added, or simply eat leftover rice cold in salads or bowls. Cold rice is not just safe, but actually beneficial for gut health, because resistant starch feeds beneficial bacteria that produce anti-cancer compounds in your colon. The fourth food is eggs. Millions of people batch cook scrambled eggs, hard-boil a dozen at a time, or make egg casseroles that they microwave throughout the week. It feels efficient, practical, and healthy. The reality at the molecular level is far less reassuring. Egg yolks contain significant concentrations of cholesterol, and while fresh dietary cholesterol is not the villain it was once believed to be, what happens to cholesterol when it is reheated is a genuinely different story. When cholesterol is exposed to heat and oxygen, it oxidizes and produces a family of compounds called oxysterols. Several oxysterols have been demonstrated to be cytotoxic, mutagenic, and carcinogenic in laboratory studies. The most concerning oxysterols found in reheated eggs include 7-ketocholesterol, 25-hydroxycholesterol, and cholesterol 5,5,6 epoxide. The first induces cell death and regeneration cycles in intestinal cells, a pattern that directly increases mutation risk over time. The second suppresses immune cells that patrol the intestinal lining looking for abnormal cells, potentially allowing early cancerous changes to escape detection. The third has demonstrated direct mutagenic activity in both bacterial and mammalian cell studies. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that microwaving previously cooked scrambled eggs increased their oxysterol content by 300 to 400% compared to freshly cooked eggs. A single reheating essentially quadrupled the oxidized cholesterol concentration. The microwave is especially problematic because egg yolk is a fat-rich emulsion, and microwave energy creates extreme hot spots within the fat phase where cholesterol oxidation concentrates. The solution is to cook eggs fresh whenever possible, since they take only a few minutes to prepare. If you have hard-boiled eggs, eat them cold. If you are reheating egg dishes, use a low-temperature oven and keep the heat below 150 degrees Celsius until just warmed through. The fifth food is chicken, and this one carries the highest overall risk because of the sheer number of carcinogenic pathways that activate simultaneously during reheating. Chicken is the most commonly reheated food in the world. Meal-prepped chicken breast microwaved for lunch every day for a week. Leftover roasted chicken blasted for 2 minutes before dinner. Chicken soup heated and reheated multiple times. Each of these common habits carries a chemical cost that accumulates over time in ways most people never consider. Chicken muscle tissue, especially breast meat, contains high concentrations of the amino acid creatine. When creatine reacts with the natural sugars in meat at elevated temperatures, the products include a class of compounds called heterocyclic amines. These are among the most potent food-derived mutagens ever identified, and they bind directly to DNA, causing the specific types of mutations found in colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and prostate cancer. Heterocyclic amine formation is not linear with temperature. It is exponential. A relatively small increase in temperature produces a disproportionately large increase in how much is formed. Microwave hotspots, which can reach surface temperatures of 200 degrees Celsius or higher on a piece of chicken even when the center is barely warm, create exactly those conditions for exponential heterocyclic amine production. Research published in the Journal of Foodscience found that microwave reheating of chicken produced significantly higher heterocyclic amine levels than oven or stove top reheating, specifically because of those extreme localized surface temperatures. And chicken skin and fat contain polyunsaturated fatty acids that undergo the same lipid oxidation cascade we discussed with cooking oils during reheating, generating malondialdehyde and 4-hydroxynonenal. Add to that the poorly digestible cross-linked proteins that end up being fermented by gut bacteria into genotoxic compounds like indole and pyrrole. And you have 3 simultaneous carcinogenic pathways activated by one routine microwave session. For people who meal prep grilled chicken on Sunday and microwave it daily through Thursday, the cumulative weekly heterocyclic amine exposure is substantial. Multiply that habit across 50 weeks a year for 20 years, and the numbers become epidemiologically significant. A study in the journal Mutation Research found that boiled chicken breast contained less than 1 nanogram per gram of heterocyclic amines, while well-done grilled chicken contained over 60 nanograms per gram. Microwave reheating of that grilled chicken adds to an already high baseline. The best alternative is to use leftover chicken cold in salads, wraps, and sandwiches. If you must warm it, use the oven or stovetop at moderate even heat, slice or shred it first to promote uniform warming, and ensure the internal temperature reaches 75 degrees Celsius throughout without creating extreme surface temperatures. Now let us address the question that is probably forming in your mind. Does eating one reheated meal actually matter? The honest answer is no. A single bowl of microwaved leftover rice is not going to cause cancer. If the risk were that immediate, the human race would not have survived the invention of the refrigerator. The concern is entirely about cumulative exposure across decades. Cancer is fundamentally a disease of accumulated DNA damage. Each exposure to a mutagen creates a small probability of a critical mutation surviving your body's repair systems. Most mutations are caught and corrected. Most that are not repaired are caught and destroyed by your immune system. But each additional exposure slightly increases the probability that one mutation slips through to become something permanent. If you reheat chicken 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year for 20 years, that is 5,000 separate exposures to elevated heterocyclic amines, oxidized fats, and genotoxic fermentation products. Over that timeline, the cumulative DNA damage becomes statistically meaningful, and the cancer risk data from population studies reflects exactly that reality. The good news is that the alternatives are genuinely simple, and in many cases produce food that tastes better anyway. Cold chicken in a proper salad with fresh dressing beats rubbery microwave chicken breast in every way. Fresh scrambled eggs take 3 minutes and are infinitely more satisfying than the spongy reheated version. Stir-fry cooked quickly with fresh oil has better texture, better flavor, and none of the oxidized fat burden of day-old reheated stir-fry. If you do need to reheat anything, use the stovetop over low heat with frequent stirring to distribute heat evenly, add moisture where appropriate to moderate surface temperatures, and use the lowest effective heat that will bring the food to a safe temperature throughout. Get yourself a food thermometer if you do not already own one. Check the center of reheated food to confirm food safety, and check the edges to confirm you are not generating the extreme surface temperatures that drive all of these chemical reactions into the danger zone. The sweet spot for reheating is between 65 and 75 degrees Celsius, hot enough to be safe from a bacterial standpoint, cool enough to avoid the chemical cascade that makes these 5 foods so problematic the second time around. Small habits, repeated over decades, shape your health in ways that dwarf almost any other lifestyle choice. This is one of the simplest and most impactful changes you can make, and now you know exactly why it matters.